This is floor 7, one of the most challenging dungeon floors in all of Skyblock. Because of the fact that it requires technical skill, a decently high Catacombs level, and a bunch of gear, it's quite difficult for new players to complete. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys everything you need to complete this floor, from gear to technical skill and everything else. Before we hop into it, I ask that you join my Discord. There's giveaways, carries, and more, and the link is going to be in the description. Oh, and also there's going to be timestamps in the description if you guys want to skip to any part of the video. Okay, now let's hop into this, starting with gear. First, let's talk about items that everyone needs for F7 regardless of their class, starting off with the Bonzo Mask and the Jerry Sheen Gun. These are both used for mobility on the boss room, as teleportation devices are disabled. Next up, we have the Wither Cloak Sword. This makes the damage that you take mana instead of health, and this can be quite useful in a sticky situation. Our next item can also help you all in a sticky situation, and this is the Bonzo Mask. It basically makes you not die, like literally. If you die with this Bonzo Mask on, it instead gives you as an ability that gives you stats instead of dying. A Wand of Atonement and Florid Zombie Sword can also be useful for healing when jumping in lava. Everyone should also have Spirit Leaps, as they're really cheap and can be useful to teleport to players in the boss room. And lastly, obviously Super Boom TNT, just for secrets and clear. However, it can also be used to blow up gates in phase 3 of the boss fight, but we'll get to that later. Next, let's move on to class specifics. So, I'll start with Arch and Burrs together, just because they deal damage in a relatively similar way. For both classes, you're going to need 2 Forts Necron, as this is the best set out there. These 2 pieces should be the chestplate and the leggings. For the boots, you should go for Maxor boots. They give you a bunch more speed than Necron's boots, and you don't actually lose that much damage or EHP. However, if you're struggling in those 2 areas, go for Necron. For the helmet, you gotta go for a golden Necron head. It's insanely OP due to the fact that it doubles your stats on floor 7. And all of this armor should be 5-starred, recomped with the exception of the golden head, have all the hot potato books on it, which means hot and fumings. Reforge it to either Legion or Last Stand. Legion, if you have the budget for it, it's so much better than Last Stand. We should reforge this armor to Ancient, and if you also have the budget for it, get Gemstones. As for weapons, if you're playing Archer, obvious choice here is the Tuju Shortbow. It's absolutely cracked for its budget. However, if you can afford a Terminator, obviously go for that, but I don't see anyone watching this video still to be able to afford a Terminator. However, if you're playing Burrs, you can go for those options, or go melee and get either a Felthorn Reaper or a Shadow Sword. You can also try something like the Bouquet of Lies, however, you're not going to get much damage in boss with that, but it is pretty cheap. Now, moving on to pets. So, if you're watching this video, you're probably low Cata, which means you don't have good survivability in boss, so I would recommend a Baby Yeti pet. However, if you can survive in boss, you could go for a Wither Skeleton pet, or if you have a bit more budget, Tiger pet. Now, let's move on to Mage. Starting off with armor, you're going to want a Storm's chestplate and Storm's leggings, as they're just the best mage pieces out there for dungeons. You also want to use Maxor boots for speed, similarly to Archer and Berserker, and you don't lose much EHP, mana, or damage from this. For the helmet, you should be using Wither Goggles, as it's just the best mage helmet in all of Skyblock due to the ability damage it gives, which will make your mage damage essentially double. As for the weapon, well, there's no way to put this lightly, but you can't really get around not having a Hyperion. With the Spirit Scepter, you can clear well, but you're just going to be absolutely dead weight in boss. For the pet, you gotta go with the Legendary Sheep. All of its perks are already broken, and if you go in dungeons, it's even better. It also gives you extra intelligence and ability damage in its stats, so it just makes for a really good mage pet. Ender Dragons and Golden Dragons are better though. Next, let's move on to the support classes. These are Healer and Tank. So for both classes, starting out with Armor for boss, you'll see what I mean by for boss in a second. You're going to be using 3 Forts Goldor, as it's just the best set out there for EHP. However, many people think that support classes are easy to play because all you need is a set of Goldor. However, in addition to this, you actually need a DPS set, such as an Archer or Burst set or a Mage set, which you can refer to the timestamps in the description if you want to see an example of those. But you need these for clear, otherwise you're just going to be absolutely terrible in clear, and you can't help your team in it. So, for support classes, you're going to need a DPS set and a Goldor set. One for boss and one for clear. As for the helmet, if you're going tank, you should go for a Reaper Mask, as it gives you an absolute ton of EHP and a decent bit of healing. As for healer, the situation is a little bit different. In healer, you need more healing for your teammates and yourself rather than EHP, so you should go for a Mender Fedora instead. It gives you a little bit less EHP, but a ton more healing, which will be better. If you're playing tank, you're gonna need a weapon to aggro with. Some popular choices are the Soul Whip and the Axe of the Shredded. Although the Axe of the Shredded is more expensive, it does work just as fine as a Soul Whip. They both work equally well. And if you don't exactly know what aggro means or anything like that, Don't worry, just wait around and you'll see. And lastly, let's talk about pets for the support classes. So, as far as tank goes, you should use a blue whale, as it is the best HP pet for tank, and really just the support classes overall. However, for healer, the jellyfish pet is a bit better, just because it gives more healing than a blue whale pet, and that makes it better for healer. Before we hop into a run and I show you what all the class roles do, I just want to talk quickly about equipment. So for all the damage classes, which are Mage, Burst, and Arch, you want to be using a Gauntlet of Contagion, since its ability is absolutely broken. For Archer and Berserker, you could be using a Shadow Assassin Cloak, an Adaptive Belt, and a Rift Necklace. The former two because they're dungeonizable, making them some of the best equipment pieces inside of dungeons in the game, and the Rift Necklace is just simply the best necklace in the game. If you're playing Mage, most of the equipment from before should work. However, you should swap out the Adaptive Belt for an Implosion Belt due to the fact that 25% of explosion damage is ridiculously OP. I don't think I really need to talk about this, but just make sure to reforge the equipment as your needs and make sure to star your dungeonizable pieces. As far as the reforges go, if you're playing Mage, go for Glistening. If you're playing Archer with a Terminator, Wax for the crit chance. Otherwise, you'd probably use Strengthened for the strength. Alright, now let's hop into a run and I'll show you guys everything you need to know. So, starting off with the clear phase. It's really similar to the rest of the floors. Some of the mobs have more HP and do more damage, but the rest of it is pretty similar. The mage should do the blood rush, and that's about it. Now, let's move on to phase 1 of the boss fight. First thing you need to do is grab these energy crystals. Once you put them down, that'll power up the energy beam and allow you to damage Maxor once you lure him into it. To do this, there are two things you can do. You can either jump in this lava right here and Bonzo Staff off the platform on the top, or you can use the Cherry Sheen Gun, and this is best for mages since they have a ton of mana, and you can just scale the pillar like this. As soon as the fight starts, the tank should lure Maxor into the place where the beam would be. And this is so that as soon as the beam powers up, the archer can immediately shoot and damage Maxor. And this speeds up your run an absolute ton. Once this is done, the crystals will respawn and you do this again. After this process is done the second time, Maxor will be dead and you can drop down into phase 2. So the first part of phase 2 is actually really anticlimactic. Storm just flies around, uses a bunch of lightning, nothing really much happens. All you should do is kill the Wither Miners, as they do, if you let them be, do a bunch of damage, and also each Wither Miner killed actually makes Storm's little anticlimactic phase go by faster. As far as class roles go for this part, Archer and Mage should be killing the Wither Miners, Tank and Healer keep everyone alive, and Mage get ready, as well as Berserker if there are any, get ready to step on the pads for the next part. And the pads are these green and yellow squares on the platforms outside of the lava river of the main platform. There is also a blue pad, but no one really ever uses it. However, just ask your party beforehand. Soon, there'll be a big red countdown on your screen signaling Storm's big attack. During this attack, you need to stand under this pillar or Wither Cloak to survive the attack. After this, your tank can aggro Storm, drag him under the pillar, and the person at pad will step on the pad, crushing Storm. After he breaks out of the crush, you can damage him. And here, your archer will just blast Storm to smithereens. After this, he will be left at 50% health, and you do this one more time until Storm will be dead, and you'll move on to phase 3. Now, phase 3, which houses Goldor, is actually really unique compared to the rest of them. You have to do terminals and devices rather than just straight up damaging him or something like that, and these are basically just tests to make sure your brain is working, all while Goldor is chasing you from behind. And if you touch him, you're dead. There's not really much to explain here or class rules for this, but the tank should generally do the Simon Says device, which is the first one. The mage usually does the lever device, which is the second one. Anyone can do the third device, which is the arrow connecting thingy one, and the archer usually does the fourth device, which is shooting the right targets. Once you've completed all terminals and devices, a little gold door will open, which is an entrance to the core, which is a little corridor where you can just damage Goldor and kill him. For this phase, make sure to use your Bonzo Staff and Jerry Sheen Gun, as they're going to be insanely important for efficient mobility in this phase. One more thing I forgot to mention quickly is that when you're doing terminals and devices in phase 3, I would strongly recommend using solvers. It just makes it so much easier and so much faster to do. I'd recommend using Skytills, that's what I use, that's what I find best. I'll link their official Discord in the description, and you can download the mod from there. And now let's cover the final phase of the boss fight, phase 4. Although in phase 4 you'll face Necron, which is like arguably the most famous of the 4 floor 7 bosses, phase 4 is actually the easiest phase of the boss fight, because all you gotta do is kill Necron. No shenanigans, no nothing. So, once you drop down into the lava after he breaks the floor beneath you, go to one side and try to keep Necron in one place so that the archer can just shoot him easily. He'll TP the middle, and then everyone goes to middle, and then the archer can just shoot him down. Keep in mind that even when he doesn't have the little question mark box above his head, which signals that you can damage him, you still gotta keep shooting him even though he's not taking damage, due to the fact that if you don't, his little frenzy attack will grow and you all are gonna get insta-killed, so just make sure to keep shooting him. Once you finish phase 4, you have officially completed floor 7. But yeah, that's basically everything you need to know for floor 7. If you guys can like and subscribe, that would mean the absolute world to me. I spent over 20 hours getting the shots and making this video, so if you could subscribe, that would be absolutely awesome. Also, if you learned something or enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like. If you got any questions, concerns, or anything else, drop them below in the comments. But that's pretty much everything I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video or learned something from it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.